Sadness. That's how we start the show. It is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. And were it to be enough that Ryne Sandberg, Hall of Famer, passed away the day after the Hall of Fame inductions, the day after people talking about Ryne, missing him in Cooperstown, watching as over 50 living Hall of Famers take the stage, all knowing that one of their brothers was missing and would not be able to make it ever again. One day later, Ryne Sandberg passed away at the age of 65. Sadness at the fact that there was a mass shooting in New York City for the first time in 25 years, and the horrific probability that the mass shooting was done by a man who was suffering from CTE, because the mass shooting took place on Park Avenue in New York City in the office building where the NFL has its offices, but the shooter got to the wrong floor because you can't just go to any floor. So after killing people in the lobby, goes to the floor where the elevator was going anyway because someone was going up to their office, not realizing, not believing what could happen. She gets to get out of the elevator, and he goes to the floor where she was going and then kills people on 33. Not related to the NFL. There's private equity firms in there. There's investment firms, real estate companies. It's an office building in New York City where you're going about your business in Midtown Manhattan. And the worst picture of all is the fact that the man got out of a car right in front of the building, not concealing a weapon, just holding an automatic rifle. That's all, holding it. Like, not in a holster, because it doesn't fit in a holster. If you've been to a New York City office building, you know that there is security behind the desk. There's security standing there, retired police, agents who get a pension, decide they want to do other work, trying to keep us safe, those who work in buildings and have worked in New York City buildings for a majority of their career. Having to walk out of the building with your hands up, if you're lucky enough to still be alive, to make sure that the police out there don't believe that you have anything to do with it as they're sweeping the building. Having Roger Goodell send a memo to all employees saying, not only did we shelter in place the way we were supposed to, thank you for your cooperation, we will have increased security, and we are at the hospital right now with one of us, an employee who is critically injured by this shooter. This shooter who was so mentally ill but able to get a concealed carry weapon in Las Vegas and then drive it all the way to New York, wanted his brain studied, left a note before he killed himself. I never really understood the order. Just kill yourself first. Now we're going to study the brain and you're going to bring more attention to CTE because you killed other people? We'll give you the same attention. Here's a message to anyone with CTE. Just leave a note for us to study your brain. We'll do it. Don't kill innocent people. It's the wrong order. There's people trying to go to work. Sadness was the wrong word, Coca. It's the wrong word. I don't see a lot of arguments online right now. All the people who are yelling and screaming about keeping their guns and Second Amendment. I just don't see those. Maybe they're not fed into my timeline. Yeah, we're back to the one subject that I don't hide where I stand. Interesting, isn't it? The subject where it violates the very principle that I live by, which is live and let live. Do whatever you want. Just don't do it to me. Yep, you got me. You got me. We're good. All right? You want to shut me off? Great. Don't want to listen? Hate listen, love listen, complain and subreddit, post Reddit. Someone told me about that, Coca. Under Reddit boards about who loves me, who hates me. I don't care. Listen, thank you. Don't. Fine. But somehow convince me that what happens in a Midtown office building, that makes sense to you. Somebody, because no one's ever been able to do it. Keeping a gun in your home to protect yourself that is properly licensed and gotten through regulation? Never said a word about that, not once. I'd like to come for every gun, believe me, but I'm not coming for those. Someone walk me through that Second Amendment in the comma and explain why the well-regulated militia would call for the ability to have an assault rifle and just have it. Maybe we just tip our cap if that's how you get killed, sort of like losing the lottery. Seems a little more avoidable than a natural disaster event. And of course, people could come argue with me, David, you're not giving enough shrift to global warming and climate change and all the things and fossil fuels that you don't care about that are impacting weather patterns, heat, tornadoes, and people are dying in floods, fires. I don't see that outrage with you. Okay, I'm a big causation guy. You may be right. I may be wrong. We all may be crazy. But there doesn't seem to be any sort of problem, any sort of interpretation that someone walking into a building with a gun is acceptable. So now what? Now we put more metal detectors? Have those already. More metal detectors just to go to an office like we're some sort of police state? Affect the freedom and the ability of millions of people because of the numbers of people who get access to firearms that they should never have access to ever? The fact that Roger Goodell has to be in a hospital visiting an employee of his, and whether or not this shooter had a CTE issue, whether or not, doesn't matter to me. Far better way to get your brain studied. And what is incredible is that I don't want Ryne Sandberg to be Farrah Fawcetted by any stretch. Ryne Sandberg passed away at 65 years old. He had metastatic prostate cancer. That's bad. When you get that diagnosis, it means that prostate cancer was not detected early. It means that it has spread, and it means it's stage 4, and it means that if you can recover, then you'll be one of the rare ones. Please get checked. It's uncomfortable, but please get checked every single year. The thing about Ryne Sandberg is some people in Philly may think of him as an early Philly guy, but then the Philly manager back in 2013 and 2015, starstruck by him, Coca, when he'd sit in the visiting manager's office that I had a hand in designing and building. And there's Ryne frickin' Sandberg sitting there. Had Don Mattingly sitting there before we brought him to the home side. Legend. Except Ryne Sandberg was a Hall of Famer elected in 2005. You know how many managers who were in the Hall of Fame? Frank Robinson was one. He managed right after he managed those Expos. Remember the Nationals too? And then Ryne Sandberg. The Phillies weren't that great in those years. And then after Charlie Manuel got fired, he took over and then he resigned. I love telling stories about Ryne Sandberg, Coca. Loved it. Loved telling stories about what he did on the field. He changed how we view second base. Changed it. Wow, you can hit for power and play flawless defense? It used to be that when you're building a baseball team, you crave building up the middle. Catcher, second, short, center field. You draw a line and you want defense. You want power from the corners. First base, third base, right field. It's all changed with Ryne Sandberg. Now you get power anywhere you want in the lineup. It can be Alex Rodriguez at shortstop. It can be Ryne Sandberg at second base. It can be Aaron Judge playing center field. Mike Trout playing center field. Ryne Sandberg won the MVP in 1984. 10 consecutive All-Star appearances. 9 consecutive Gold Gloves. By the way, he didn't make errors, number one. Number two, speedy as can be, but not like the speed, if he were on a track, he'd win the Wide World of Stars race on the beach against Carl Weathers and Sylvester Stallone. He had the kind of speed because he understood when to go and how to use it because his baseball sense was perfect. You don't need a lot of speed to quote unquote leg out a double when you know very well the direction the ball's going when it's hit and where the fielder's playing. So you have the exact number of seconds when the fielder is going to be, because he'll know the speed of the fielder, to get to the ball, field it, whether he has a good arm, to throw it to second base. Meanwhile, he's sliding in ahead of the tag. Baseball IQ that would make Isaac Newton jealous. He had athletic skills that I would say were not top 10, top 20, top 30, top 50 in terms of athletic skills, but his baseball acumen made him a Hall of Famer. You sit there and you watch the Hall of Fame induction this weekend, and you look at some of the old guys. I was looking at Tony Perez walk in and realize he's in his 80s. You look at Juan Marshall, and you look at Sandy Koufax, who's 89 years old. You miss Bud Selig, who wasn't there, and you're thinking, how often, how many more? When does it happen? The passage of time and dying at an old age, that's how it's supposed to be, is you feel the sadness, you feel the gratification of a life long lived, a life well lived. You appreciate being with your grandparents if you can, or with older people, or with veterans, or with survivors of the Holocaust, but then you watch as they pass away. That's not tragic when 94-year-olds, 98-year-olds, it's sad, but not tragic. When a 26-year-old gets shot down at work, that's tragic. When a 65-year-old dies of cancer, that's tragic. All of it is under the umbrella of sadness. Makes me think about what our show is. I struggle on days like this, Coca, man. Do I ever? You don't help but think about yourself because you're selfish, which I am. You don't help but think about your children because I don't want to have to worry about them going into office buildings. And you think about the list of things that I have to worry about. I have to worry about where the kids are. Are they driving? Are they flying? Are they going into an office building? Are they going wherever they're going? I don't worry as much about workplace arguments. That happens. Nose to nose with somebody, getting right up in there, having a passionate conversation with your coworker. A word of advice to all people listening. Do not get into a nose-to-nose confrontation with the person who is your boss. You're gonna lose. And make no mistake, Rob Manfred and Bryce Harper are on two different levels. And Bryce Harper is the one looking up. Word came out yesterday that Bryce Harper had some interesting things to say to Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, in an effort to make the rounds. We've covered on Nothing Personal, going from clubhouse to clubhouse to clubhouse. 30 teams he wants to meet with every year. God bless him. It's a pain in the neck. But he finds a way to bang out a few in Florida, Arizona during spring training. Then you do some around where you can be quickly in the Northeast. You can get road teams who come to visit New York. There's a whole panoply of ways. You try to get three things done at once. If you go to a particular city, maybe announce an all-star game or try to work on some public financing. We can all make our schedule efficient. The commissioner was meeting with the Philadelphia Phillies and doing what he does 30 times a year. Hey, guys, it's Rob. Good to see you. I told you I was going to try to be more accessible to you and have you see that I'm normal and a good guy. But by the way, man, we need a cap. Now, of course, Rob is way more subtle than that. Rob is way smarter than that with his group of people and Dan Hallam and Noah Garden and Pat Courtney. Way smarter than that to just walk in and say, hey, Bryce, are you paying attention? Is Scott Boras listening on the phone? If you think Scott Boras isn't involved in the argument that happened between Rob Manfred and Bryce Harper, then you're not paying attention to how it goes in baseball. because Rob Manfred has given the talk. He's talking about exactly what he's done in every other clubhouse. Here's the business issues in baseball right now. Here's what we're trying to accomplish over the coming 12 to 24 months. Here's the benefits to you. He's taken it to the people. Go back to the last CBA and remember what we talked about. The Boris people voted against it as members of the executive council. The rest of the team reps voted in favor. So when Rob is going to clubhouses to try to stir up interest in his platform and in trying to avoid a lockout and get a deal done, who's the player who's going to stand up and say, I disagree? A Scott Boras player. Man, you didn't need to be Dick Tracy or Scooby-Doo to figure this out. So a Scott Boras mouthpiece, Bryce Harper, second only to Max Scherzer, stands up and says, literally, from what we hear, nose to nose, and says, get the F out of our clubhouse. Really nice. Very respectful. To which Rob Manfred replied, no, I think I'm good. I think I'll stay here. Thank you very much. Appreciate the offer, Bryce. You think that Rob Manfred doesn't know who Bryce Harper's agent is? You bet your sweet Bippy he does. You think that Rob Manfred is blaming Bryce Harper for what Bryce Harper did? Nope. Blaming Scott Boras, who clearly put him up to it. Bryce, you cannot let. You're a leader. You're a leader, Bryce. You're a veteran. You've got to stand up and show these kids. You've got to teach them. Scott Boras actually talked about why Bryce Harper feels strongly about a salary cap. This is Scott Boras saying, young people, young players need to talk with veterans like Harper. Harper has been fighting the consequences of caps his whole life. I'm sorry, but my stomach hurts, Coke. I may need a break. I may need to get out of the chair because I'm nauseous at anyone reading Scott Boras's comment and believing that it's possibly true that Bryce Harper has been fighting the consequences of caps his whole life. He's obviously referring to when he signed as an amateur with the #1 overall pick. He must be referring to the salaries that he paid as a minimum player that he was paid, or his arbitration money, or what he got in free agency, where there are no caps at all, and he cashed in with the Philadelphia Phillies. I can't imagine what else is on his mind, but something that Scott Boras wants us to have sympathy for Bryce Harper, who's doing it for the youngins. You know, the thing is, when you have the commissioner come into your clubhouse, and we've all had it for one reason or another, players are generally respectful because that's their job, to be respectful. Can you imagine if I just want to make sure we're all clear here, if one of my corporate sales employees went up to the commissioner and got in his face to talk about why his non-uniform pension, or why his 401k, or why the bonus structure on the team, or why, and got in the face of the commissioner, do you know what happened? That person would get fired immediately. I'm the boss. I answer to my boss, the owner. The commissioner, who does answer to the owner as well, gets elected by the owner, but is revered in the industry as the #1 person on the chain, regardless of who reports to who and who controls whose comp and whether or not that person actually gets voted into office. Forget that. Once you vote for Rob, or once you don't, but Rob still wins, that's it. Players know it. Team employees know it. Everybody knows it. And Nick Castellanos was forced to talk about this entire thing because Scott Boras would only give that ridiculous quote, and Harper really didn't have much to say. So Castellanos was in the room when it happened, and he said, hey, it was an intense situation, no question. Castellanos wanted to diffuse the tension and stood up and said, "Hi, I've got more questions. Commissioner, is that okay?" Turns out that Harper and Manfred may have shaken hands. Manfred may have called him the next day to say, "Hey, that was crazy. Why are we doing that? That doesn't make you look good or me look good. And it sure as heck fire doesn't make your agent look good." But Harper ghosted him. This is the rumor. If you're Harper and you get a call from the commissioner, it's actually in your best interest to take that call, because you don't want the commissioner's office or any owners or anybody in management in any way thinking that they have found the way to get you quiet, because, man, that's what they want. They don't want to hear from Boris clients anymore. And if it all takes is a little nose to nose and a little talk about the salary cap in a meeting, and it's going to set you off in a way that makes you look sort of silly, because if you want to fight the salary cap, you fight it in collective bargaining. If you want to fight the salary cap, you don't give it the power that you're giving it. Strategically speaking, and I'm talking to you, Scott Boras, because you think you're running the negotiations. You think, although you lost all power on the executive council, but maybe you're maneuvering for a coup, whatever it is you think you're doing. Do you understand that the more baseball talks about a salary cap, the more they fight for it, that when eventually they take it off the table, you're going to have to give till it hurts in order to have that taken off the table? When maybe the intention all along was to not have it on the table? Are you paying attention to the possible motives of each side? Are you trying to understand why Rob is doing what he's doing, why Tony's doing what he's doing? Are you trying to understand why Scott Boras is doing what he's doing? I am. That's an easy one. Identifying what Tony Clark and Rob Manfred and what some of the owners and players are doing, that part, complicated, but doable. Trying to figure out why Scott Boras does what Scott Boras does, it's as easy as 2 + 2 = 4. When you work for baseball, you have to just be careful. When you work for any company, I've given you all my example, and you can criticize it all you want. You can't work for the Marlins and then root for the Red Sox. You can't do it. You can't work for Coke and drink Pepsi. You can't do it. You can't work for JP Morgan and wear Goldman Sachs clothing. You just don't do it. You can't do it. You have responsibilities to your employee. Mark DeRosa is a great guy. Mark DeRosa is going to manage the USA World Baseball Classic team in March of 26. He got himself into this story because Mark DeRosa, former player and a great managerial candidate, he warned the Phillies players, hey, that wasn't good what Harper did. Rob Manfred could retaliate. That word got out, so Mark DeRosa had to say he was kidding. That's what you do when you're trying to back out of something you said that hurts someone or could get you in trouble. You got 2 ways to go when you meet with your PR people. 1, I didn't say it. Well, in this day and age, that becomes a little harder. 2, I did say it. You misunderstood it. Easy, because how can I know how you interpreted what I said? I can only tell you how I interpreted what I meant to say. And if you interpreted something differently, that's on you. You misunderstood. You can go that direction. That's a good one. Or you could go with door number 3. Dudes, I was totally kidding. That's what DeRosa did. He said I was kidding. Shame on me for thinking I had a better relationship with some of the players in there. Talking about players inside the clubhouse. 3 ways. The third one's funny to me. Once you see the reaction of somebody, oh, I was just kidding. Well, were you? Or are you only just kidding because of what has taken place since you said what you said? I think it's more like a after the fact, just kidding. Just think about it during your next conversation with somebody, and then you'll smile and think of nothing personal. The next time you say, oh, I'm just kidding, Just realize why you're doing that. It's in reaction to the receiver of the first line who didn't receive it the way you wanted. I'm just kidding. I'm going to stay with our theme right now. This is total coincidence. So we didn't know that Ryne Sandberg was going to pass away at 65 years old. He's got a statue, by the way, outside of Wrigley Field. Ryne Sandberg, who has his number retired, has a statue. He is going to be mourned. The Cubs will start their series tonight, wherever they play, because it's escaping me. They will have a patch that will commemorate. He is patch worthy. Let there be no doubt about that. The patches are being either ironed on or sewed on as we speak, as the Cubs play again tonight in Milwaukee at 6:40 local time or 7:40 Eastern. You will see an immediate homage to Ryne Sandberg. My guess is it's not going to be the stripe. I think you're actually going to get a circular black ribbon that has his number on it. We'll wait to see. Don't misunderstand how significant that death is in the sport. Speaking of people who have decided they've got a better plan and that their plan is one that is going to impact other people, how about time for the review, Coca? It's time for the review. Coca, sorry. I just got a text that a classmate of my sister was killed yesterday. I literally just got that text. So there must have been a high school student from Horace Mann. I'm just going to respond live. This is live. I'm sorry. I just want to tell her, ask if she's okay. Where were we, Coco? It was not a high school. My sister is no longer in high school. It was a high school classmate of my sister who is, I was going to say well into her 40s, but then she'd be mad at me. What is the definition of well into your 40s? Is 42 well into your 40s? I think that's early 40s. I'm going to go with 40, 41, 42, and 43 or early 40s or early decade. And then if you're 34, 35, 36, 37, you're in your mid 30s. And then 38 and 39 are your late 30s. Can we do that? Which means I'm in my mid 50s. I'm going to do that. Am I the only one, Coco, who does that? So you're in your mid 30s, early 30s? I don't even know how old you are. But yes, this is my sister's in her 40s, and it was a classmate of hers. So I would assume one of the people who died, who got shot by this murderer who then killed himself the wrong order, as I told you, I assume somebody you will find was in his or her or their 40s. I don't turn my phone off during the show, Coca, and I should, but I don't want to miss if like emergencies happen. And there's about 8 people in my life who know that between 7 and 8:43, if you're going to text me, it means something bad. I never get a text, hey, good news, I passed an exam. That doesn't come between 7 and 8:43. Or, hey, do you want to have dinner tonight? Or, hey, thanks again for that weekend trip. Whatever. Don't get those. The 7 to 8:43s are, oh, classmate of mine. Old classmate of mine. It is a coincidence, a complete coincidence that the movie I was going to watch yesterday and did watch, because I do watch a movie every day, is called Sovereign with Nick Offerman and Jacob Tremblay. Have you come across any sovereigns? I have not in real life, or if I have, they don't have a name tag, so I don't know whether or not they are. Certainly have heard about it, what it is to be a sovereign. This is an actual thing. It's very simple. It's the rule of not believing rules. Always my favorite, being the captain of the anarchy team. The irony, of course, is not lost on my audience, who are smiling right now at the idiocy of that. I was just elected president of the Anarchy Club. Do you know when you apply to a job or you apply to college and you write down what your extracurriculars are? This happens to be true because I know people who are presidents of schools and in the admissions offices of schools at various levels. Yes, it's true. There are people who do put as one of their extracurriculars that they have started a club about anarchy, thinking that that would somehow be attractive to an admissions office when in fact it leads to a that's a no chance toilet pants application right there, dudes. So sovereign people believe that they are not subject to law. They don't need to follow the rules. They've got a belief, and Nick Offerman exhibits this perfectly in the movie. He really does, where he makes it known that you think that you can repossess my house. Well, it's not my house. One of the great lines of the movie is when he's trying to convince the bank, I don't know who you're foreclosing against. Me? I am not a being that can be foreclosed against. You may be foreclosing against this other guy named John Cocktoaston, but that other guy is who's got the deal with you, not me. I'm a sovereign. How do you think that works out at the end? Pretty much works out that that's a pretty weak argument. I guess what I take away from sovereign, and I want to ask you, poor Jacob Tremblay, you may have seen him in The Room, that amazing Academy Award performance by Brie Larson back in 2015. He was the little boy. Well, 10 years later, he's obviously not a little boy. So he plays the grown son of Nick Offerman, who is basically taught all of the insanity that is being a sovereign and believes in it because it's his dad. And then gets himself into a whole lot of trouble where the dad didn't quite realize how seriously the son was listening to him or following advice or potentially following his advice. And the movie is tragic. The movie is tragic because it is hard to comprehend how we from generation to generation could pass on, whether it's racism, sexism, whether it's the belief that you are living in a country whose government is not, the rules do not apply to you. And it's hard to break that if generation upon generation is brought up believing that's the way it is. No one's born thinking, hey, I'm a sovereign. No one's born thinking, oh, hey, I'm the best race. No one's born thinking, oh, I hate women. No one's born thinking that. You got to be taught it, as you know, as we've talked about. Parents teach kids, and kids then decide to go exactly the way the parents go, or they get 10 tattoos, 16 piercings, maybe don't go to college, and then go live in a national park. Go against what their banker parents do, or lawyer parents do, or doctor parents do. It's pretty obvious. It's not, again, second time of the show. You don't need to be Dick Tracy or Scooby Doo to figure out which kids are doing what in terms of their parents' footsteps. You're either in them or you're going the exact other way. Wouldn't it be nice if all kids went the other way from qualities that parents have that should not be carried down from generation? And I don't mean work ethic. I don't mean choosing work over family. Those are at the margins. I'm talking about systemic racism, sexism. I'm talking about the systemic belief that the very place that you live is operated in a way that you refuse to acknowledge. My view is simple. Move out instead of the nightmare that became their family. I actually became fascinated in this movie when I watched it. Admittedly, did not know a lot about sovereign people, and learned a lot, and then studied after, read some articles. It's interesting. It's worth seeing a Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman. Find me a movie Nick Offerman was bad in, and I'll find you a movie that I disagree with your taste on. Today is Tuesday, Coca. That means we are one day away from another So You Want to Talk to Samson Wednesday. So You Want to Talk to Samson is from the movie Half Baked. It's when you Get on the phone and dial 631. That number again, 631. That's the zip code. 4869. I'm going to do this again. It was terrible. 631 is an area code. 377, that's DPS on your rotary phone. And then 4869, because that's how we roll here in this live show on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, which, if you're watching this clip at all, hit subscribe. Join us. Stuff's happening. Please call 631-377-4869. Leave a message. You may make the show. You'll know tomorrow, hour 2. Be there or be a rhombus. When I want to trade a player and then I can't trade the player, I get angry. There's about 4 reasons why you could want to trade a player and then you can't trade a player. Number 1, far and away, is injury. You have a plan. You are trading this player at the deadline. Oh, no. Suarez, the Diamondbacks, gets hit in the hand. If he breaks his hamate bone, the deadline is July 31st. He's going to miss a month. No one's going to give us anything for him. We're going to have to hang on to him, pay his salary, and we're not going to make the playoffs. And then he's going to leave as a free agent. He gets bopped on the hand. Thank God x-rays were negative. The collective sigh out of Arizona was palpable. Kenny Kendrick and Derek Hall doing the Snoopy dance, as they should be. If, in fact, Suarez is still a Diamondback Thursday at 6:01 p.m., I will be the first to tell you on Friday's show that I had it completely wrong. So injury, that's one thing you really don't want to see when you're trading a player. I figured out another one. You don't want to see the player get banged for steroids right around the trade deadline. Yeah, that's a real one. Suspended 80 games or 160 games or lifetime. Yikes. Not sure we can trade you anymore. Thanks for nothing. Though I will be happy to save your salary for the next 90 games, 80 games. That's 2. Injury, steroids. I got a third now. It's called the non-disciplinary paid leave plan. The non-disciplinary paid leave plan is a list of players. Hey, you did something. We can't exactly punish you for it because we're still figuring it out. And we're not going to stop paying you your money every 2 weeks, but you can't play. You can't come to the ballpark. You cannot be a part of it because you're not on administrative leave. You're not on restricted list. You're not on the injured list. You were on the non-disciplinary paid list. Another collective bargaining machination dreamed up by people who love to find ways to get people on lists so it can define who you are. Hey, which one are you on? Man, I'm restricted. What about you? Oh, I'm on paternity. My kid's about to be born. All right, you ready to come back when you're done? Well, then I may be put on the non-disciplinary paid leave if I don't show up in the next 5 days. Don't know how that's going to end. Emmanuel Clase was put on that list yesterday, and I nearly fell off my chair. We're talking about last year, the greatest closer in the game. We're talking about the greatest trade chip that the Cleveland Guardians had. We're talking about when you are a playoff team on the cusp of playoffs and think you have a chance and you can get a shutdown closer. Now, he'll never be what he was last year because what he was last year was dialed in a way that makes you have night sweats and tears rolling down your eyes, waiting for the other shoe to drop like you're some sort of other guilt-ridden person. Yes, that was slightly autobiographical. Was a great year. His year this year, still good. I mean, he's not going to have, third in the Cy Young with a .61 ERA. It's not going to happen. Yes, his ERA is up this year. Yes, his hits, giving up more hits than last year already. He's striking out people, walking people, all the things that would make you say, wow, he's not what he was in 2024. And all the acquiring teams are saying, wow, we don't want that. That's insane. We'll just take 2025 Clase. We're going to put him into the back end of our bullpen, and we have got ourselves some depth. All of that's great until MLB announced Emmanuel Clase is now tied to the gambling probe of his teammate. Remember when Luis Ortiz, the Guardians right-hander, do you remember him throwing balls that were like, wow, that's a crappy pitch? And then finding out, wait a minute, someone bet on the fact that that pitch would be a ball with this live betting, which Rob Manfred has made very clear to the gambling companies. Listen, we love being your partner. Good for us, good for you. We're embracing it like the warm embrace we'd give to a kid coming home from camp after 7 weeks, filled with love, hope, anticipation, a little bit of fear of reentry. But these prop bets, man, we got to stop them. We can't be live betting whether it's going to be a ball or a strike. It's a nightmare. And the gambling companies, one of whom is a sponsor of our show, DraftKings, say, hey, we've got the infrastructure. If someone's doing that, we'll catch them. Don't worry. But 99.9% of the time, people are just trying to throw strikes, or they lose grip of the ball, or you took away the spider tack. Whatever the case may be, come on, give me a small break. And of course, DraftKings would be right. Because the number of people involved in the gambling probe, is it 2 people? Is it 4 people? Is it 5 people? Well, compared to the total number of big leaguers, and as you know what the number is, 26 times 30, which is 30 times 20, which is 600, and then 30 times 6, which is 180. So you've got 780 players. Did I do that math right, Coca? You always make me question my math, and I don't know why you do that. Is it because it's early in the morning or because I'm tired? I just don't know why you do it. 780. I did it in my head. How many of them are doing prop betting on whether or not they're going to throw a ball or strike? And how many of them are on the Guardians? How screwed are the Guardians? Injury? No, he's not injured. Steroids? Suspended? Nope, didn't do that. Gambling? Get the F out of here. The Guardians had to release a statement saying, hey, no additional players or club personnel are expected to be impacted by the investigation. Well, in my experience, MLB's not exactly telling you that. Do you think that MLB called the Guardians and said, you're not going to believe this, but we got to get rid of your closer who you were going to trade? It's not like we could have waited 3 weeks, because then all of a sudden, if he gets traded and then the investigation is announced, we've been doing this investigation for months, you didn't know, but now we got to tell you, which is a violation of how it works. But we're telling you, the Guardians, because we can't allow you to be a victim of fraudulent inducement. Hey, I want you to take Emmanuel Clase and pay his bills. And then he gets suspended. And then the acquiring team says, yo, Antonetti of the Guardians, did you know that we were going to give you those prospects? And then he wasn't going to be able to pitch for us? If you knew that, you're in trouble. MLB had to take away any sort of appearance of impropriety, any sort of thought that they would unwind the trade, which is likely what the scenario would have been. But the reality is that Emmanuel Clase is now stuck a Guardian, and for the very near future, and for the very medium future, and maybe forever, you could be looking at, we don't know, a lifetime suspension. You don't know what he did. You don't know why he's being investigated. Something bad enough that would cause him to be put on the non-disciplinary paid leave list. Something bad enough. So MLB has to go out of its way to do something they don't like doing, and they have to contact the Guardians and say, by the way, Clase is involved. Stephen Vogt is the manager of the Guardians, and they're going through it right now. And he was asked this very simple question yesterday. And that's what you should ask if you're in the media. The simple question was, hey, do the Guardians still believe in the integrity of the game? Like, what are we doing here? How do the teammates feel? Stephen Vogt said, I'm not happy. This stinks. It's a different part of our game that we're now dealing with because it's legal. You don't know what's going on. There have been a number of stories over the last year and a half related to this. 2 of our guys are being investigated, and that hurts. He's talking about Clase and Luis Ortiz, obviously. There's going to be rumors that you're going to hear. It's a good one that they had lockers next to each other during spring training, very close friends. It would be not out of the realm of possibility at all that they were dealing with the same person in the same probe, doing the same things. I wouldn't be shocked, other than the fact that Clase has an opportunity to make real money. He's making $5 million this year. He's making $6.5 million next year. And then he's got a bunch of club options at $10 million. If he gets suspended for life, the money that he's earned out of his $5 million, it's been a little more than half, $2.5 to $3 million. Give up the rest of his contract. Because once the investigation's done, if he did this, he's suspended, likely for life. Rob Manfred has been clear. There's going to be a change here, folks. This is not good for the sport. It's not good for any sport. Rob Manfred said, there's certain types of bets that strike me as unnecessary, particularly vulnerable. That's these. Ball, strike. What's the next pitch? Emmanuel Clase is no joke. Did you see what the Tigers did, Coca? We got the trade deadline coming up in 2 days. The Tigers added Chris Paddock. Yeah, that Chris Paddock. The Twins are selling. The Tigers are adding middle to bottom of the rotation starter. Why not? The Tigers are going through a tough stretch. They definitely could use some pitching. That makes sense. Think about what their injuries are. Like every contending team, Alex Cobb, remember, he got hurt. He's got a thing with his hip. Don't forget the Tommy John that rookie got. Remember Akiti? Tommy John? My God, just everybody. So if you've got Tarek Skubal and Jack Flaherty, you could put Casey Mize in the 3-hole maybe. You got a few others, but you bring in Chris Paddock and you hope that he can pitch either a game 4 of 7 or a game 4 of 5, or maybe he switches to the long guy to the bullpen. It's a depth piece. That's all it is. It's a good trade. The Cubs are fighting with the Brewers right now. Let's go, Milwaukee. Nah, I love you too, Cubs. You know it. Great timing. The Cubs extended their president of baseball operations yesterday. You got to love that. 3 days before. Now it's 2 days before the trade deadline. They're in second place behind the Brewers. His contract expired at the end of this year. But Tom Ricketts said to Jed Hoyer, I don't want you to be thinking about anything other than the trade deadline for the next 2 days. And then for the rest of the season, I want you focused on our team. And I'm bringing a second World Series since 2016. I don't want you to worry about your contract status. I got you, babe, Sonny. It's not a problem. The hope is that this was negotiated 6 months ago and it was going to get leaked so that they had to say something. If, in fact, they were negotiating right now, that would be funny to me. This is the single last time I'd like to be negotiating with my GM or president of baseball ops because they're busy doing stuff, as they should be. But it's still cool for everyone who thinks that Judd Hoyer's gotten the job done. Well, now you got him for a couple of more years. Or it could be like the way I did it. It doesn't matter who you sign to what contract because we could can you at any minute. You got 4 years left, no problem. We'll pay you out. Your contract's expired in 6 days, no problem. We got 5.5 days to negotiate a new one. It's the trade deadline, for crying out loud, Meatloaf. This is what the Cubs are announcing? Come on. Wait till you see what happens after the break. In the next hour of the show, we're going to have on a guest who we haven't spoken to yet on this show. You want to learn about Messi and soccer and MLS and get some insight that I can't provide, but I can criticize? We got Tom Bogert at the start of hour 2. We'll be back. Welcome back to hour two of Nothing Personal. It is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. And you know what Tuesday hour two means. It means we get to talk to someone and you get to hear someone else's dulcet tones for a hot second. And we are lucky to have Tom Bogert. You may know him as Major League Soccer and U.S. Men's National Team Insider for Give Me Sport, Soccer Wise, and CBS Sports Golazo. He's everywhere. He's a friend of the Levitard Show, and we are lucky to have him. Welcome to Nothing Personal, Tom. Good morning. How are you?
David, I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. And I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
You look completely awake and rolling. It's early. I know it's early, but man, you do not look the worse for wear. I want to get right to it because in Major League Soccer, we cover it here on Nothing Personal, but certainly we need some expertise. And a story that has caught our attention is what's going on. There's a German legend. He is a German legend. I guess we can call him that, Tom Muller. He wants to transfer to Vancouver, but Cincinnati owns his rights. Can we talk about what the rules are in Major League Soccer? Because that is not exactly how we do it in baseball or in any of the other major sports. What's going on with Muller and how is this going to end?
Yeah, it doesn't sound so much like free market capitalism in that regard. So the reason why is that it's by design. When MLS was much smaller, when it was fighting for its life in the early 2000s, they had a lot of rules that they lean in a single entity. The whole point of this rule was so teams weren't outbidding each other for the same player, and so that every player didn't just end up in Miami, well, before they had the team, New York, Los Angeles, and whatever. So this is an outdated rule from an outdated time. As stupid as it sounds, it made sense in that era because the league needed to do everything it could just to survive. But right now the league is thriving, and right now the league needs to continue expanding, and they're too slow to take off some of these training wheels that they had to put on. And discovery rights is one of them. So Cincinnati has his rights, and the rules stipulate if you make a fair and genuine offer, and David, you'll know better than anybody, that's a little bit difficult to disprove. If you put any offer on a paper, that's a fair and genuine offer in the eye of the beholder. If you make that offer, then you don't have to automatically lose this player's rights. You get compensated for a player you've never had. And in FC Cincinnati's case, they joined MLS in 2019. Thomas Muller debuted in 2005. So FC Cincinnati, the wording discovery rights doesn't do the league any favors. But this is something that needs to change and they need to get rid of in the year 2025 of Major League Soccer.
I picture that this was all executives going around to youth soccer fields and saying, oh, look at that 10-year-old, because we try that in baseball in the Dominican. That's going to be a good player. I discovered you. I'm going to lock him up and keep you. And it seems to me that MLS is going to have to change this rule. Will it be retroactive and deal with this issue with Mueller, or is it going to be going forward? And in fact, this Vancouver-Cincinnati situation is a real problem.
So it is a real problem insofar that Vancouver believes Cincy are being unreasonable. Vancouver ended up giving Thomas Muller a bigger offer, and technically they're not supposed to be negotiating if they don't have the rights, but everybody does. Like, there's nobody that's going to be crying about tampering. Cincinnati tried to sign him for a deal that in Major League Soccer, you can have three players make whatever you want. It's called a designated player rule. Cincinnati was not going to give him that contract, so he turned them down. He will get that contract next year with Vancouver, but Vancouver can't give it to him now. So overall, Vancouver are going to be giving him more money. So the obvious thing is just let him go. And with Thomas Muller, he is a legend. He's a huge, huge player in the world of soccer, even though he's at the end of his career. It behooves MLS to get him in the league. And if Cincinnati aren't being realistic about what they're asking, I don't know exactly the numbers that they're demanding from Vancouver, the league can step in and put their thumb on the scale and say, listen, like, you need to be reasonable. We need to resolve this. And from my understanding, the league is helping facilitate a resolution in this situation.
You're listening to Tom Bogert, who is an MLS insider, and you just said something that struck me as interesting, which is that he's toward the end of his career. Thomas Muller is not a youngin'. And so it's reminding me of Beckham and Messi and many other big-time players who come to MLS. I think one of the issues that MLS has in trying to become one of the big four, which it's always tried to do, for 25 years, why is it that my perception, tell me I'm wrong, that it's like a retirement community for famous soccer players around the world who want to come to the U.S. and make some last-minute cash?
A few things that I can disagree with there. So one, I would say you were right about retirement league probably as recently as 2018, 2019. No pushback there. But what the league has done, and this is David Beckham's biggest legacy, I think, in Major League Soccer, is nothing like on the field, he made it more legitimate. He got more eyeballs on it. He got people turning their heads. But what he did for the foundation of this league, the standards of hotels, the standards of travel, the standards of training facilities. Around this time, Major League Soccer were launching development academies to be more like the world of soccer, and they have done that. So since David Beckham left, and all of these kids are starting to graduate academies and get into the league, the level has gotten higher and higher. The training facilities are world class. I talked to U.S. national team players that come from big clubs in Europe, and they say like, "Wow, I'm blown away by FC Cincinnati's training facility. It's better than anything I've ever had in Europe." And these are players at big teams. So that's the first point. The second point is yes, like Lionel Messi would be the best player in France right now, or one of the best players. So he's an alien. You can push him to the side. Thomas Muller is joining a team where he'll be the oldest player by far. This team is in second or third place right now in the Western Conference. They are one of the most positive stories in MLS. If they don't sign him, they will be very good. And that is the difference between like 10 years ago in MLS. You try to sign a player like this for relevancy. You try to sign a player like this to push your team forward. If he doesn't play well, and this is what happened with Olivier Giroud with LAFC. He's France's all-time leading scorer. He won a World Cup, and he was playing in Serie A in Italy, a really big league, and scoring a lot of goals. He came here, he wasn't playing well, and they stuck him on the bench and then got out of his contract a year after he joined. So that is the vast difference in MLS now. And just one more point to this is, yes, like the retirement home moniker is something the league is wary of, and you know, I hear it from fans who maybe don't quite know. I don't ever want this league to be a place that doesn't have Thomas Muller and even Olivier Giroud when it didn't work, Lionel Messi. I want this league to have those players while having the rising young talent, the level of play continuing to get better. Because if you just want to watch a youth development league, go watch the Brazilian league, go watch the Argentine league, go watch the Dutch league. MLS having a little bit of both is what makes it unique. And they're not chasing the big four sports in MLS, maybe Garber is, but the big chase is the top 5 leagues in Europe. That is their goal. That is what they're trying to get to.
Yeah, I've always thought actually that Garber was chasing the top 4 in North America, but you bring up a great point because if they're chasing the top 4 or 5 in Europe, is that the reason why they are talking about a calendar change? Because how can you chase a league and be a summer football league as an example? Well, then you're not going to be a real competitor of the NFL. Is that in the mind of some of the MLS owners that, hey, in order to be them, we have to play when they play?
Exactly. And it helps so much in the global transfer market because right now MLS's off season is the winter. That's the middle of the season in Europe. It is much more difficult to get transfers done when those two things aren't aligned. So in the summer right now, a lot of European clubs want to do the majority of their signings and departures right now. Well, there's 12 games, 10 games left in the Major League Soccer regular season. They don't want to sell their best players right now. They want to push for the playoffs. So that makes it awkward. What I will say is people point to, oh, now you're going to be going up against the NFL and college football or other sports, or, you know, maybe your final is going to be near the, you know, NBA finals, Stanley Cup finals. Well, last year, MLS Cup final was on a Saturday in December. It was championship Saturday in college football. It went directly against Alabama versus Texas. And then I believe the Big Ten championship was the second half of the game. You're not getting any casual sports fans on that day. So that's already not an issue. And I will say, it's a joke that the league hasn't changed the schedule yet. The World Cup was announced 8 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe more. Messi joined 2 years ago. And the idea that they need to do more research and still continue to figure out whether they're going to change the schedule when the most obvious break for this was after the 2026 World Cup next summer, that is my biggest disappointment. The inaction and the inability to make a quick decision is what is slowing this league down.
Well, I think that every league has an issue with doing things quickly. There are years of study to do anything. I mean, crying out loud, it took 4 years of study to get rid of the intentional walk in baseball and just put up 4 fingers and have the guy go to first base. You're studying the impact, you know, doing an impact statement from 4 different angles. It's the old paralysis by analysis situation. And I understand because it's a pretty big decision to change the calendar. But they've gone through these sort of decisions and they've gotten to an answer. So the Messi one is an interesting one for me. They came to the conclusion, hey, we'll give him a piece. We'll give him a piece of streaming, which is outrageous and absurd. We're not going to talk about how much it is or how many customers we have, even though Garber sort of intimated and gave us more information than he had ever before. But so they made that decision pretty quickly. And then they made the decision pretty quickly to suspend him and not let him play against Cincinnati after he didn't show up for the All-Star game. So it seems like they're a little selective when they will use speed and when they won't. And targeting Messi, it really was important to me, but I was also surprised by it. What was your reaction?
Yeah, so I think a lot of MLS fans of other clubs would say they were pretty slow and they reluctantly suspended him. And Don Garber kind of said that in a statement to The Athletic, where he was like, this was a really, really difficult decision. And I preface this by saying, if I was advising Messi, I would have told him not to play either. Like, just take the suspension, whatever. But the idea that Miami and the camp were like, he's so upset by this, he can't believe this, whatever the phrasing that Jorge Mas used at the press conference. The league had to suspend him because
Tom, excuse me, go back to what you said. If you were advising Messi,
yeah,
you would have advised him to not play in the All-Star game, which is the game of the league that he's trying to build, where he gets profit from more and more exposure to more and more people for Major League Soccer. So I'm sorry, explain that one to me.
So I care, and Messi cares more about on-field competitive games than he does the marketing side of things, the business side of things. And yes, he is the face of the league, but that's not his role. He doesn't do media ever. What he wants to do is be the face of the league by continuing to be one of the best players in the world, which he is. He's played 90 minutes 9 times in the last 35 days. They played on Saturday in New Jersey, fly back to Miami, and then he was going to take a plane to Austin. Again, I know that he flies in comfort. These are not crazy long trips, but the man is 37, 38 years old. He's played 9 games in 35 days. Are you going to make him go fly and play in this friendly game, this exhibition against Liga MX All-Stars? It's Lionel Messi. What does he need from this? But on the other side, understand that comes with a 1-game suspension and build that into your rest too. And last year, Miami played Cincinnati after the All-Star game. And this is a rule that is long-standing at MLS. If you skip the All-Star game, you suspend a game. Because if they don't do that, Messi would never come. Zlatan Ibrahimovic would never come. Zlatan was somebody who was suspended for skipping the All-Star game. And last year, Luis Suarez, it was a little bit murky, a little bit cloudy, whether or not he was injured to miss the All-Star game, and there weren't enough questions asked. And Miami played Cincinnati after the All-Star game, and Luis Suarez played. I'll tell you, FC Cincinnati fans and people at that club have not let me forget that one. And FC Cincinnati were saying 2 of their best players played in the All-Star game. Their best player has played 150 or 200 less minutes than Lionel Messi this year across all competitions. He could have used a break, but he went and played. So if I'm Cincinnati, I would have been on the league office immediately. You have to suspend him. Why did we send our players, but he gets arrested? He gets to play. So that's the right call, while saying the best thing for Lionel Messi's body was to take a rest.
I'm missing something. He actually gets paid for what he does on the field. He gets paid for what he does off the field. And he actually has a financial incentive to grow the game. Why not get on the private plane, land in Austin, meet a couple sponsors, shake a few hands, kiss a few babies, get introduced, go on the field, and then have the number held up. See you later. 4 minutes of the game. You don't have to run that much. You may not even sweat. You're there. You've done what you're supposed to do. Why would you not advise him to do that plan?
I mean, there's an argument there, but I just think that he's bigger than this. And again, he's earned the right to say, I'm just going to skip this. I'm going to take the rest. He wasn't training at all in Miami this week. He didn't return to training, I think, until Friday morning, when they were just still hoping that he wasn't going to get suspended. And I had sources who told me Cincinnati, Friday morning, we're planning for the probability that Messi was going to not get suspended and he was going to play. They didn't find out until after training, right before kind of they made that announcement. So I thought that was interesting. But again, if he needs rest, give him rest. And I'm fine with that. It's just, you need to understand that comes with the consequence. This wasn't a surprise. The big surprise would have been if he didn't get suspended. And if he didn't get suspended, the fans of all the other 29 clubs would have been up in arms. Because, by the way, Saturday, they introduced a new player. His name is Rodrigo De Paul. He's a World Cup winner. His nickname in world football is Messi's bodyguard. He's a great player. He's going to join the team for a $17 million transfer fee in the winter. That'll be the second highest fee in league history. He'll have a contract that's probably around $10 million. All of this makes him a designated player in MLS. But for right now, he's joining on a loan, and there's no obligation to pick up his purchase option. So he's able to be added to the team without using a DP spot. So the fans, like the juxtaposition of that, of like, oh, and by the way, your best player isn't getting suspended. The fans around the league would have been, there's two sets of rules, one for them and one for the rest of us. So the league had to suspend Messi.
We've always thought that Inter Miami had power because of Messi, but it seems that Jorge Mas went after Don Garber after the suspension. You think that when he was pushing back, you think he was doing that for the Messi camp, just to make sure that they thought that he had their back? Or do we think there's an issue between Garber and Jorge Mas?
More the former than the latter. There's healthy friction from what I've heard in those owners' meetings with Jorge Mas. Jorge Mas is one of the owners that are saying, let's take the training wheels off. Let's spend more. Let's take away some of the restrictions. Again, it doesn't need to be no salary cap or whatever, but let's move it forward and let's do more. Let me sign Rodrigo de Paul without having to jump through hoops and structure the deal in a way that it's legal for us right now. So there's some of the friction. More of the friction has to do with the low spending owners at MLS that have more control and more power. And Jorge Mas is working to chip away, and fans appreciate him for that, even if, in press conferences and stuff, if you're not a Miami fan, you might not love the guy. But I think he's overall really good for MLS, and he's trying to move the league forward. And I'll tell you, he's always entertaining.
So he used the word draconian, and that's what got me going, because and then he dropped Messi's very upset. And I would argue that he is likely, according to what you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you have spoken to Messi, he wasn't despondent beyond repair to not play in the All-Star game. He knew that he was going to get suspended, I assume. So what is it? How is it possible that he is upset with the decision?
So I think what Jorge Mas was intimating was a hope, maybe not an expectation, but a hope that, hey, Lionel Messi just played in 9 games, and some of those games were extra games because we were at the Club World Cup. Jorge Mas said this in his press conference. He said Miami's game against PSG at the Club World Cup was reached to 30 million viewers. And this is the first time we're hearing really any numbers, I think, from the Club World Cup. And as you've said in other clips about, just the MLS numbers, 30 million is obviously a massive number. And the whole point is he's the reason why people are tuning in. So, hey, can't you just let it slide? Can't you just let him take this break? Because he played extra games, which was beneficial for the league. And I think Garber generally agreed, or at least he was trying to take the tone publicly of, this was such a hard decision, we're going to have to look at this rule to try to not be antagonistic to Mas and the Messi camp. But I think that they were hoping that, hey, he's played a lot of games, and hey, there's extra competitions and all this, and no. And again, I firmly believe that they couldn't bend on that one, but I guess Miami were hoping they were going to.
Do you look back on the Apple deal? It's gotten a lot of attention recently. Do you look back on the Apple streaming deal as a mistake? Do you look at it as the right decision at the time that has not worked? Or do you look at it as a decision where it's still TBD whether it was the right decision?
So I think it was the right decision at the time. That's where everything was going. And I do like other leagues have started to try to line up their deals to make it more central like this and with streaming services. And Apple TV seems a really good partner to be at. So I'm not going to do revisionist history and suggest, this was obviously bad, even though that there was the worries of, will it reach casual fans? What is the price point going to be? What is going to make sense? Those are all things that they're still working through. I think one of the things that I would love to see changed in the future, if this deal does continue, is more reasons to go to MLS Season Pass on a non-game day. I would like to see some of the games spread out a little bit more, so that the biggest issue that I hear from fans and even, again, sources in the league, if most of the teams, if not all the teams, are playing at 7:30 p.m. local time on a Saturday, if you're the head coach of a club, you can never watch any other game live. If you're a broadcaster calling one of those games, you can never watch another of these games live. And you think about the NFL. How many different windows are NFL games in? Keep it to soccer, Serie A, Italy. There's like 7 different windows for 10 games that they're playing every weekend. And MLS wants to have more games at once. They want to have continuity for the fans because the biggest selling point is the fans in the stadium. And again, more of the money is coming from fans in the stadium than a TV deal right now. and they wanted to have their whip around red zone style show have more games on at once. There's 30 teams in this league. You can still do that while saying, hey, Miami, you're going to play it at 3 p.m. On a Saturday or on a Sunday in September or whatever. And you get more viewers watching Lionel Messi games and Inter Miami games and marquee games. So that's a big thing that I want to see change, and I hope that we get there.
You want to know the best way to know that your league is growing? It's when you do not say that game day revenue is the driver.
Yep.
You need to be able to say, no, no, it's the media rights deal that's the driver. And
Agreed.
that is when in the NHL really can't say it, MLS can't say it, but an NBA and NFL can, and MLB wants to. So where you are with media rights deals, and my issue with the Apple streaming deal is that I thought it was premature. You know, you've got leagues that have gone through. Major League Baseball is looking at streaming more. NFL did streaming deals, and those are leagues that were mature leagues. And my thought was MLS was not mature enough to hide it behind a streamer because people don't have it within them to search the extra step or pay the extra step at a place that they don't normally go to. And MLS wants to be there but isn't. That was my thought of it.
I think that is completely fair, and going down that kind of thought process. I have, anecdotally, I have a couple friends who would go to Philadelphia Union games, probably, around 12 of their 17 home games a season. And I was, talking to them, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, did you get season pass? They're like, absolutely not. Like, $95? You kidding me? I was like, dude, like, you can go to one game, your ticket, a couple beers, and parking. That's the price of season pass for a season. And he's like, no, I don't care. Like, I'm not paying for it. So it's difficult. Like, you do as much market research as you want. Like, how do you get over that hurdle? And like you said, and that's somebody who was a fan of the league or is a fan of the league, just doesn't watch any of the games now unless he's going to them. So it's a quandary. It's difficult because you want to partner with Apple. You want to be on the cutting edge. But like you said, you're not getting any casuals stumbling in.
Tom, we only have a couple minutes left. I want to switch to the U.S. men's national team, which is one of the areas in which you are an insider and obviously incredibly knowledgeable. We've got the World Cup coming up. Is it too early? I can't even do this with a good conscience, Coca. I'm not going to ask him, hey, are they going to win the World Cup? Just give me a little scatter report here for our audience. Is the U.S. men's national team, what shot do we have in the World Cup?
If you asked me this after the 22 World Cup, I would have said there's a real chance for them to be semifinalists. Right now, man, get to the knockout rounds. It's been really, really bad over the last 4 years between these World Cups. Young players haven't developed. Chief among them is Gio Reyna. He was viewed as one of the best young players in the world, and he has completely fallen off a cliff. The manager was fired. They got eliminated in the group stage at the Copa America. They lost in the Nations League. And the new managers come in, and there's starting to be some questions about him and about he's publicly fighting with his best player. They're not winning things. Like they did pretty good at the Gold Cup this summer with a lot of players missing, but still they needed a penalty shootout to beat Costa Rica. Guatemala pretty much barely, like they were holding on for dear life in the end, and then they got played off the field by Mexico in the final. So vibes are really bad right now, to say the least, and I don't know how you recover it because they don't have any more competitive games until next summer. So we'll have to take any positive signs we can, but I'll tell you right now, things don't look good.
Well, that was the most depressing scatter report of the U.S. men's national team ever. We didn't rehearse that. I wanted you to be upbeat and say, yeah, we've been struggling, but we have just enough runway. We're going to be in there. And the value right now when people don't think they're going to be good, what great value. Our friends at DraftKings, let's go. Instead, you were like putting up the umbrella like Wile E. Coyote, looking at the other men's national teams, saying that's the U.S. They're all falling on us like boulders. Totally despondent, but not having spoken to you, that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. It's not easy coming in the morning live at 7:53 a.m., but thank you for doing that. And can we do this again? There's so much more soccer to talk about.
I love that, Samson. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Cheers.
And that was Tom Bogert. That was great. Major League Soccer U.S. men's national team insider Give Me Sport, check it out. Soccer Wise, CBS Sports Galazzo, partner to my CBS Sports HQ. You heard it live. U.S. men's national team stinks. Depressing. Not nearly as depressing. Wow, this has been a couple of topics on today's show, both hour one and hour two, that were not perfectly uplifting. This one's going to uplift Coca, but it brought me right down into the gutter. Did you see Steph Curry? He spoke on a show called 360 with Speedy. Steph Curry looked in the camera and he was asked a question. Do you think that you're underpaid? I thought, oh my God, this is a softball. This is great. This is when Steph Curry can be relatable, even though he's got more money than everyone who likes him. And he can say, oh God, underpaid? What you talking about, Willis? I couldn't be more proud of the money that I've made. It's enough money for 20 lifetimes and for every member of my family and friends. And I am so appreciative to this league to have been put me in an opportunity to think about what I've done compared to my father, who had a sweet jumper. Good old Del Curry. Now that would have been an answer. Nope. Steph Curry sat there comfortably, legs crossed, not in the attack position, basically saying to you, yeah, I'm underpaid. I don't have equity in the team. I'm a salaried guy. Therefore, I'm underpaid. I thought we were partners with the owners. I thought we were partners with the league. Nah, because we can't participate in equity, we're not partners. We're just employees. I'm not going to laugh at Steph. I want to explain what he said and explain why it is absolutely insane to do this. When you work for a company, sometimes you participate in a 401k. Sometimes you participate and there are employee-owned companies. That's a fancy word for, hey, we're not giving you any power to operate whatsoever. Zero. You're not getting a board seat. Nothing. You're not getting the right to vote with your shares, but we're going to give you some options. We'll give you some vesting stock. And if our stock goes up, you're going to make a little extra comp, pay some tax. Way to go. That is not the type of equity that Steph Curry is referring to. Steph Curry is looking to build a percentage of the team that in his mind he helped create. He actually said the rule that stops us from participating in equity while we're playing is a part of why I would say, yes, we're underpaid. You want to be able to participate in the rise, but Steph, there's a salary cap. It's done for fairness. Do you agree that if your salary cap number for your team or yourself and the most you can make is 64 million, I'm making up the number, but in addition, you can get equity in your team, call it 1%, that would have a value, let's just as a joke call it $10 million. Obviously, I'm joking, but just say 10 million. It's way more. Say 60 million. Don't care what the number is. Do you agree that equity grant to you would impact the salary cap? That you would be more apt to do a deal with the Golden State Warriors for under your market value if you were able to get equity that can't be measured? Why do I know this? Baseball teams do it, going for equity in stations that are our TV partners because it doesn't count for revenue sharing. Always trying to get away with how do we get more money to our players. But you can't have it violate the cap. Therefore, the best way for you to get equity, I've got the plan for you, Steph. Right now, you're under contract. You've got to push the Warriors into bankruptcy and then become a creditor. Then, as a creditor, not number one, but you can stand online in front of the judge and say, Your Honor, instead of being paid my salary, I'll take a piece of the team. You could go full Mario Lemieux if you so choose, if you think that's the plan that makes sense to you. That's number one. Number two, do you think that the person who came up with the atom bomb all of a sudden owned a piece of the government? Do you think that someone who invented the cure for cancer all of a sudden owns the percentage of Pfizer? I'm going on and on with examples which are to explain to Steph Curry and the other players, your job is you're an employee. If you want to be an equity holder, buy a team. But you're a employee of a company, you are doing work product. Do I have some sort of clause that once nothing personal triples in size or doubles in the time that it's on the air or is unbelievably popular, like the 101st most popular podcast on a Time magazine list? Do I then all of a sudden say, well, I ought to own Metalark or DraftKings for that matter? When you do a good deal for your investment bank, you get a bonus. You get highly compensated. You may even share in some vesting stock, but becoming a controlling stockholder or becoming a large enough, like reportable stockholder, over 5% or 10%, never going to happen. None of these things could happen and do happen in any truly operating business. How do I know it? Because that's why all the players, when they're done, want to be owners. Because they say to themselves, wait a minute, this seems like a better plan. And it is. And you know it. So, one thing you can do is call up the owners of the Warriors and say, I would like to buy a piece of the team, just like Tom Brady did. Then you can fight about the valuation, try to get in at a discount, try to get it past the Board of Governors in the way that Tom Brady could, and sign a personal services contract going forward, which pays you an ungodly amount of money, and all you have to do is show up and not be messy. Don't skip, and I don't mean dirty. I mean Lionel Messi. Show up, shake hands, and we'll pay you 10, 15, 20 million dollars, and then you can pay that money back to us, and then we can sell you a piece of the team. I'll help you put a deal together, Steph, but it has nothing to do with being a great player. Because here's the funny part. We don't differentiate between you and the 12th guy on the team. You get paid more money, no doubt. But in terms of the way that it's dealt with health insurance, with collective bargaining, with what rules have to be followed, you're all players. You're all under the same umbrella. Did I ever make exceptions and give a superstar an extra biscuit is what I would say, an extra cookie, a little bit extra in terms of certain violations like curfew? Not others. You're subject to the same issues of time and other responsibilities that the worst player on the team is. But either way, you telling us that you deserve equity and that you're underpaid, another word of advice is don't say you're underpaid when you make $50+ million a year, because the audience and your fans cannot appreciate that in any way. So the way to do it, and I know you're smart enough because you are a smart guy to do this, is you sit in a podcast, you're asked a question, and give me a thought about answer, Ray bargaining and Ray good fortune, and because you've got the latter. You've got the good fortune. Of course I'm not underpaid. You didn't quite do it. Nothing personal pick of the day. Sorry, Coca. I know, I picked the Padres over your Mets, and you thought you had me. You thought me had me until the walk-off. Padres over the Mets was a winner. We are 101-94, therefore erasing our 1-2 weekend and making it a 2-2 weekend. And we're back tonight. It's Corbin Day. Patrick Corbin takes the hill, I think, for the first time since the All-Star break, it feels like. Angels, Kikuchi, minus 122 over the red hot Texas Rangers and their unbelievable ninth starter, Patrick Corbin. Can Corbin Day continue? You bet your sweet pipsters it can, and it will. And I still think the Rangers are going to make the playoffs. Corbin Day, Angels over Rangers. That's your nothing personal pick of the day. I got something you shouldn't do. Do you want to know what it is? You shouldn't sell tickets for above face value. What am I even talking about? This is a story that I have been so excited to tell you. Do you know that Super Bowl tickets go for money? They get printed and they're given a ticket price, let's say $500. And did you know there's an aftermarket? Because all we do is talk about it and say the get-in price is $17,269. Well, what does that mean? The face of the ticket says $562. Well, the reason is that supply demand. There's not a lot of supply, a ton of demand. That pushes up price. Because the people who want it say to the people who have it, I'll give you $562. And that person says, what are you talking about? I got someone over here who will give me $662, even though the face value is only $562. Yeah, that would make sense. All right, I'll give you $762. Hey, that's nice of you, but the guy over there, he'll give me $1,000 for the ticket. Get out of town. Fine, I'll give you $1,500. Do you see the negotiation I'm having? I only paid the face value, $500 for this ticket, and I can sell it for $2,000. Let me do some quick math for you. That's $1,500 of profit per ticket. If you find your way to get an allocation of 5 tickets, oh man, $7,500 right dans votre poche. But there are rules. Very simple rules we had in baseball, and I've fired people for violating the rules when I found out. Here's the rule. We'll give you access to World Series tickets, but don't you sell them. If you sell them for above face and pocket it, we're going to catch you. And it's not hard to do. If you did a private transaction, we would never catch you. But sometimes we did spot checks at the seats because we kept a seating chart of where everybody was at a particular stadium. So you never know. But generally, what are the odds of a curfew check when you're at camp? Once in a while, they check your bunk. The other times, they just treat you and scare you into thinking they will check your bunk. So we would scare our employees. Do not sell these tickets for more than face. We will fire you, and don't put them online because then our algorithm will catch you. If you're selling them to your friends thinking that that's okay, it's not. We may check the locations. Still, people got fired. NFL players are doing this, and they're doing it in a way that is costing them. NFL players are going to get fined and suspended for taking Super Bowl tickets and selling them above face value. There are 100 NFL players who are going to be subject to fines and potential suspensions for what they're doing. The NFL investigated this because it really gets in our craw. If we could charge $1,000 more per ticket, then we would. We want the money. If we miscalculate what the market is, then we're going to try to fix it on our own secondary market. We're going to try to fix it with whatever we can do with dynamic pricing. We are not allowing the players or employees or anyone else to handle the incorrectly graphed market and then profit from it by themselves. Not going to happen. You can't work at Coke and take a 6-pack off the line and sell it. Sorry. You can't put together a Tesla and say, dude, I put this one together. Thank you so much. I'm going to take it off the lot. And then I'm going to sell it. So how does that end? It ends with there's going to be not just fines, but suspensions. The NFL has actually approached these players who they've got them red-handed, and some of them have actually accepted the penalty, the fine, because they don't want to be suspended. That's another trick we do. We say your punishment's going to be X plus Y, but if you admit to what you did right now, we'll just make it X. There's been more innocent people who say they're guilty because they only want the initial small punishment. They don't want to risk the possibility of the bigger punishment. And in the NFL, the bigger punishment is you may be SOL, like out of the league type stuff. That's how major this is. And there's a group of people who buy these tickets who the NFL, MLB, they all want them to go away. These are people who are called bundlers. The reason why they want bundlers only working under the umbrella of the league itself is they want it to be league sponsored, league controlled. When you've got randos, when you've got those bundlers who are feeling like it's the Wild West and they approach players and they get players to give them tickets and then they're bundling the tickets and they're reselling them at big numbers, you've got several layers of profit making that make the tickets even more expensive, that make it even further away from what face value was, and it draws negative attention. The NFL doesn't want to be known, yeah, we ticket only for the rich. You want to come to the Super Bowl, $10,000 a pair, and that's if you're lucky. Ideally, if you can charge a reasonable price but keep all of that price, then you're more apt to be willing to do a reasonable price. And you're more apt to want to make sure that there is no nefarious activity going on. So the NFL and MLB and NBA, they spend money. NHL Stanley Cup, they spend money. There's a budget that we know about, which is for ticket enforcement. Ticket enforcement is a budget item which says we're looking for players, we're looking for fans, we're looking for any irregularities because we want to control the market. You gotta let us. Fascinating to me how this ends, because the truth is it's going to end with these punishments of all these players who are all admitting to what they're doing. And now the rules are going to change, and the way tickets are given to players for the Super Bowl, it's really going to be far more strict and time consuming because they don't want this to happen again. But here's what Roger Goodell needs to know deep down in the bottom of his heart. It's unavoidable. It's as old as the day is long. When you give people access to tickets and they don't want them and they're using them to sell and to make money because they want to supplement their income or just want to believe they're putting one over on the man, there's nothing you can do. Because even if their profit is $50, they're going to make a profit because all those players who want tickets don't want to go to the game. Maybe in the new CBA, Coca, it's going to be addressed. As a matter of fact, that's an easy way to see, but it goes too long, so I won't make it official, Coca. But the next CBA is going to address even more this abuse of tickets to jewel events and how you deal with it. It is incredibly, incredibly not just scary, but a pain in the neck. I guess what's really scary, though, is when you get a memo. Here's a memo you don't want to get, Coca. Dear to whom it may be concerned. Turns out there's a criminal investigation into the finances of your NFL Players Association. And it turns out that there may be some misuse of funds and some self-enrichment. We can't exactly tell you who the union officials are because nothing's official, but I wonder if Lloyd Howell and J.C. Tretter are a part of it. Can you imagine the coincidence? If Lloyd Howell and J.C. Tretter resigned for funny reasons, oh, I want to see my kids grow up, and it turns out that they were committing crimes, and I'm not accusing them. This is not reckless speculation, Dano. This is me saying, sometimes 1 + 1 is 2. Sometimes 1 + 1 is 4. Sometimes we screw it up and 1 + 1 is a half. There's always a reason that people tend to resign, and it's not always because they've been to a strip club. It's not always because they're excited to watch their families grow up. Sometimes there may be investigations. And sometimes those investigations may lead right to the source of the problem. And then the source of the problem needs to put his head between his tail and his legs and say, time for me to go. You see, there was a senior union attorney at the NFLPA who shared a letter with the executive committee. That's the NFLPA executive committee, the one that's got to figure out who's going to be the interim, the one who can't quite figure it out, who may have begged for Howell to stay, I doubt it, who may have wanted Treader to stay, forget it, who's got to find out if they want to bring in someone new, someone old, or someone blue. That player committee? Well, there was a memo that was titled Crisis Management that this senior union attorney sent, and it wasn't about Howell or Treader. It was about, yikes, we got a sitch here where there could have been some funny business with money. So, a word to the wise. Do not direct contracts that are inappropriate toward the company. Do not give money to make somebody an employee who is not doing anything and just being paid because they're a relative, or being paid because you think they're good at what they do, even though they don't even know what they're supposed to do, but they've got a nice little salary. Why don't you start talking to some of the players who opened up 501c3 charities, tried to give jobs to every single one of their families, thinking that would be a tax savings and a way to get the money, only to have the government say, hey, NT, nice try. I've seen more athlete charitable foundations shut down than I've seen weeds grow in an unkept yard. Is it possible that there's been a lapse of fiduciary duty here amongst union leadership? Is it possible that there's some sort of money that's going where the money is not supposed to go? Well, now it's damage control time. So a couple members of the committee said publicly, we're good here. Don't you panic. We've got great staff. We're smart. We're moving with urgency. We don't need to fill any spots immediately because we've got this. Our union is in great shape. Do you know the people who stand up in front of a crowd at a press conference, and the first thing they do is they take the microphone and they say, hi, welcome, thank you all for coming. I don't know why everyone's flashing the alarm, pressing the alarm. We're good here. There's nothing to see here. Okay, question from the crowd. Yes, sir. David, what do you got? Why are you having this press conference again? Oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm having this press conference because it seemed like too many of you thought that we were disorganized and not acting like a real strong union. So we needed to let everyone know that we strong like ox. But I'm sorry, sir. There's only 11 of us representatives, or maybe 12. Why didn't you just meet with us and then let us spread the word to our teams? Why was it necessary to have some sort of public conversation about this? I like where your head's at, young man. The reason is that I needed to make sure you were doing your job, so I decided to do it first. One of my favorite things about corporate America. I'm doing your job for you. Why? I'm good at my job. Yes, but not fast enough or not good enough. Either way, it's nothing positive when your boss has to do your job for you. Nothing positive at all. If the Fed really is doing a criminal investigation into nefarious activities by the NFL Players Association, the NFL Players Association will take another shot across the bow of its competence, and they will have to further remove themselves from Treader and Howell and anyone associated with them and go outside and look for someone outside with experience to come in and bring down the hammer on the processes of the NFLPA, because every day we hear a new problem with them. Every day. That's not what a players association is supposed to be. It's supposed to represent its players, its union. Get them more money, more power, more rights. Instead, they are being picked apart by a management that is well prepared to deal with a fractured union or one without leadership. Why do you think it's so important to do all this? Well, it should be fairly obvious to you. Because to me, it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.